The Blackstar toy line was made by the now deceased toy company Galoob in 1983. It was based on a cartoon series of the same name that ran for the first time in 1981. The story went something like this. John Blackstar was an astronaut. He was in outer space and he gets sucked into a black hole. There, he ends up on this planet called Sagar. He becomes best buds with these little creatures that look kind of like hobbits, but they live in a tree, like the Keebler elves. Don't know if they make cookies. Anyways, just to be clear, they're not hobbits, they're trobbits. Yep, trobbits. You don't believe me? Here's the full story in a nutshell.
John Blackstar, astronaut. Is swept through a black hole into an ancient alien universe. Trapped on the planet Sagar, Blackstar is rescued by the tiny Trobbit people. In turn, he joins their fight for freedom against the cruel Overlord. Who rules by the might of the Power Star. The Power Star is split into the Power Sword and the Star Sword. And so, with Star Sword in hand, Blackstar, together with his allies, sets out to save the planet Sagar. This is his destiny. I am John Blackstar.
Blackstar was animated by Filmation Studios. Filmation had given us cartoons like Tarzan, The Lone Ranger, Zorro, and the Ghostbusters, but the one with the ape, not the one that we normally think of when we think of Ghostbusters. It also gave us the very cool Brave Star. I love 3030, and of course the granddaddy of them all, the Masters of the Universe. Each figure usually came with a sidekick. The good guys got a Trobbit, which was a solid piece of plastic that looked more like a chess piece than anything else. And the bad guys got a demon. The demons were exactly the same. The only difference was the color scheme. Some were yellow, some were blue, red, etc. I know the Trobbits were also sold in a 4-pack. I think they were called Trobbits of Sagar. These toys were incredibly cheaply done. If they fell, they would shatter like glass. But still, there was this funny charm to them, almost harkening back to the old monster toys of the 50s. So, let's talk action. After all, these guys are action figures. Take my friend here, the Leopard Man, for example. As I stated, his articulation was very limited. He could move his arms up and down. The legs would swivel at the hip, and he could open his legs and close them. The head could turn from side to side and was made of this really soft plastic, almost like a rubber ducky. But the body, the torso, was made of this brittle plastic where if you weren't careful when you were playing with them and you moved their arms, the whole shoulder could disattach. It's happened to me actually with several of them. So that's why I'm being very careful when I kind of move him around. Each figure came with a weapon. This guy actually had several. He even had like a weapons pack or some type of a backpack and to carry all his armament. This plastic, the best that I can equate it to is if you go to Spencer's or Newberry Comics or Hot Topics or something, you'll find these packages that have like constellation. It has planets and stars, and you can stick them in your ceiling, and when you turn off the lights they glow in the dark. Well, that's the plastic that this is made of. All of them, all the line came with that type of plastic. Now, the first wave, that's all you got. But what they did was they re-released a lot of their figures in the second wave, and they got a little more creative. They added a new action feature to it called the laser light feature. And this is how it worked. Let's take our friend here, the Vizier. He even had less mobility than the other guys. He was just a hollow piece of plastic, and his arms could kind of move. So in the back, he had this cylinder type of attachment. And what they did was they took a very small piece of flint and they inserted that piece of flint inside the tubing. Let's see if I can. Sometimes this is a bit. These toys are so old that their plastic parts get stuck. So the little piece of flint was stuck in the tube, and that it had a spring. See? Then that spring, you would insert it, or they would insert it in the tube, like so. And then the spring would push the flint up the tubing, and then when you turned this little wheel here, it would rub against the flint and it would create that effect. That was the laser light feature that they had. So think of a lighter. If you get a lighter and you have no fluid and you're flicking it, you're trying to turn on your butt, that's what you're getting. All of them had this feature in the second wave, from Blackstar himself to the Overlord. We did get some vehicles and playsets. I don't have any of them because they're very expensive in the second-hand market. Warlock was Blackstar's faithful steed. We got the regular green and a variant with yellow wings and a star in his chest. We got the Triton Bull, which was a character called Cadbray's steed. We got two spaceships, one gray, one red for Blackstar, a battle wagon, and the weirdest thing of all, this thing called the Wind Machine. This was the Trobbit's vehicle or mode of transportation. It was basically a plastic tub with a beach ball attached to it. And last but not least, their Castle Grayskull, or Snake Mountain, the Ice Castle. The guys over at Retroblasting have an excellent review on this, so I'm not going to get into it. All I'm going to say is, if you order this online, make sure that it's wrapped in some type of space polymer, because you'll probably get a jigsaw puzzle delivered to your house. Now, we can't mention Blackstar without mentioning He-Man. You see, because Filmation had done both animated series, there were concepts and ideas that were borrowed from one show and kind of passed on to another. For example, there were things like designs. If you look at Buzz-Off, and then you look at this character, you can clearly see similarities not only in the color scheme, but also in the aesthetics. And then you had things like, or ideas like, Battle Armor He-Man, Dragon Blast Skeletor, each sold separately from Mattel. What I'm talking about is the concepts of the swords. If you guys remember, the He-Man and Skeletor toys each came with one half of the power sword. And once brought together, they would form one whole piece, which, if I'm not mistaken, was used to unlock the drawbridge at Castle Grayskull. Well, this same idea was developed for Blackstar. You had the Power Star, which one half the Overlord had, and the other half Blackstar had. And the idea was that if the Overlord was able to get his hands on the other sword, he would be able to bring them together and have the sword restored to its original form, and he would be able to, I guess, to conquer Sagar or something. This toy, the swords did not attach like the Masters of the Universe swords did. Blackstar, the animated series, only lasted one season, and a lot of these characters only appeared in one episode. This was Galoob's attempt at a science fiction, fantasy themed action figure toy line for boys. Sadly, it was eclipsed by the juggernaut that was Masters of the Universe. So, what is the legacy of this toy line? Reused parts? Repainted vehicles that we now call variants? Quality control issues? Well, that's one way of looking at it. I'd like to think that it contributed to the development of more diverse characters, better quality figures, and paved the way not only for Masters of the Universe, but also for Bravestar and many other space and science fiction fantasy themed animated series. For me, personally, that is the legacy of John Blackstar.